Welcome back to my channel and another series of the solo podcast that I just started recently, speaking about property investing, all insights and tips that I have from my very own experience. I hope you find them useful. And in this video, I'm going to touch on something very interesting and super helpful if you're starting out, but also if you're in the business and you just want to get more deals done and get it to the next level. And that is, of course, leveraging other people's money, in this case, leveraging banks' money and understanding how this actually could work towards your portfolio building. So building your property investing portfolio in a way bigger scale than you would have thought. And perhaps there are some ideas that you could use towards your own journey. And you might have not thought about those in the past. So let's start with just the idea that leverage is good, and you have to definitely use it towards at least increasing the value of your portfolio and just maximizing its potential. And what I mean by these buzzwords is that basically, if you're only using your own money towards buying your properties, then you're definitely gonna need a lot of time to stack up those sums of money, the capital needed towards buying your next properties, which is, possible but very tedious. You'll have to literally save either big portions of your salary or your income if you're self-employed or an entrepreneur. And this is just going to take a long time, and it's just going to be basically a very small ROI towards your investment. Because if you're just using your own money, your payback periods are obviously going to be way higher. And just considering a simple case scenario, if you use a 20 to 80 LTV mortgage and versus buying this property straight away and just renting it out on the same terms, generally, if it's a good property and you did the maths right, then you will have basically an X2 faster payback period for the one that is mortgaged, because basically you only paid 20%, so you'll have to return only those 20%, while when you paid for the whole property up front, you'll have to return the whole amount of the property to be considered a payback period, 100%. So for the 20%, those will be actually covered by the tenant. So the mortgage payments will be covered by the tenant, while you will also make some profit out of that. So usually, again, if it's a good scenario, then you will perhaps make around double of the the same amount that you pay for your mortgage every month, you will make as a profit as well. So if, let's say, you rent it out for $2,000, usually it's going to be around $1,000 for the monthly mortgage payment, while you also make another $1,000 as profit. So that's how it used to work and still works for me in most of the projects where I actually got mortgages. And that's why I think, comparing to just buying anything up front, this makes so much more sense. Then another thing that I want to touch upon is people always ask me, what do you think about the interest rates in the market nowadays and so on, which honestly, I don't even want to touch on that. I just want to cut it right away and say that if you're an investor and this property is yours, just understand this fact that the interest rate doesn't matter. So if you're actually living in that property, the interest rate matters because you are covering, the mortgage payments, and you're not making any profit out of that. So in that case, if the interest goes higher, then you will actually pay more out of your own pocket. So that makes sense. But if you are an investor, the market adjusts by itself. So if the interest rate will grow, let's say by 1% or 1.5%, your annual rent will also grow. Most probably in a healthy market, every landlord who will get these news that, your mortgage rate went up, every landlord will increase the rental price. And that's a fact. That's how it works. So basically, it doesn't really affect you as an investor, because if you are paying 1,000 and now you're going to pay, let's say, 1,100, while you rent it out for 2,000, you will just start renting it out for 2,100 or actually even higher. Usually that's the case. So if the mortgage rates rise in the market, usually the tenants will end up paying more for the rent, because the rent will increase even more than the mortgage rate. So usually it's just a thing that follows one after another, and is just unavoidable. That's why in healthy markets, you actually, as an investor, don't really need to care about the interest rates, and your only purpose is to find out deals that would make sense versus the leveraged money that you're going to use towards covering them. So what I mean by this is my actual next point, that when you have a property, or let's say you just have a couple of opportunities, in economics, this is called the opportunity cost. You have to decide which one is better. And basically, the difference between those opportunities is the opportunity cost. So you want to find the one that just makes most sense for you as an investor. So let's say in property, if you already own a one-bedroom apartment and you already paid for it, then maybe it would make more sense to try to approach a couple of banks and try to refinance that apartment, get some equity back to you, which basically is a loan on your own apartment. And if the percentage for that mortgage, in this case, is going to be considered a mortgage loan, is going to be lower than, getting a personal loan or just getting some finance from investors, then maybe this makes more sense for you to get that equity out and use that towards your next deal. So this is something really interesting, and this is actually the holy grail of leveraging banks' money and other people's money towards justifying better deals. So if you have, let's say, an offer to just deposit the money, you have, a great saving account offer now, and that will give you more than the mortgage that you can get from a bank, then perhaps is actually even better to, just play around and maybe mortgage your apartment, get the money back, or the other way around. If you haven't mortgaged your apartment, maybe you want to consider that instead of getting some other loans. So maybe you already have a loan right now and you have to pay, let's say, 7% for that, while you also own a property. And on that property, you can get the money back as in forms of equity, like I just explained, on 3%. So why not mortgaging your apartment, getting that money back on 3%, and closing your other loan, which is 7%. So end result, you will make just the cost, the opportunity of 4%. So you will save 4%. That's why it's very important to understand how you can play around with money, how you can use different banks towards helping you with this, and just be aware always. Maybe you don't even need it right now, but just be aware which banks offer you what and for what kind of loans as well. So you can consider personal loans, you can consider mortgages, you can even consider credit cards. Maybe there is just an insanely good deal for like 3 months of zero interest on your credit card. So you can actually use that money and pay for another deal while all the other rates are super high in the market. So you definitely have to consider that. Just giving you some ideas of how I personally used it in the past. When I started my property investing journey, specifically in my home country of Moldova, I actually used a lot of leveraged money, specifically from banks at that time, because I used to have a full-time job, but I was already getting started in property. And my job would have paid me quite a lot on the average market price salaries to be able to afford actually quite a lot of mortgages at that time. So I actually had a time when I had, I think it was 7 or 8 mortgages at the same time, just because I was able to get this basically this percentage of basically mortgage payments to be less than 40% of my monthly income. And I know that might sound crazy to you, but here in Moldova, the prices were pretty low a few years ago. That's why that was possible. So I would even get a couple of properties mortgaged just to cover the next payment. So I probably spoke about this in a couple of my previous videos. I can link them in this video. But basically, I had a payment plan on one property, and when it was finished, I had to pay the remaining 50%. So I used a bank to mortgage the remaining 50% based on my salary. I paid back the developer, closed it on the developer side. So I actually own the property, of course, mortgaged. So it's between me and the bank. And I actually sold it the very next day to another buyer who just offered a very, very big price increase, because I actually mortgaged it on the initial price that I paid while it was in construction. And when it was actually completed, the price increased almost double. And that was the good times of property investing in Moldova. It's pretty expensive nowadays. So I'm not sure if this is a reality, but you can tell me in the comments if you have any experience with this, not only in Moldova, but also in other countries. But basically, I try to use, all kinds of leverage from specifically local banks to close off my other payments that were just at higher interests. So I closed a couple of my personal loans, a couple of my overdrafts even, which were eating up my budgets, and just having a property mortgage, using that money instead of, just closing that deal fully. I don't care, if it's in between me and the bank, as long as the money makes sense. So I can actually use that to cover something that just eats me up way faster, because the mortgages, they will usually have the best interest rates throughout all types of loans. So rather use that to cover up for other things. But generally, better to not even have the other things and just use your credit cards for daily purchases and have mortgages on your property, rent them out, and just make great incomes on that. But nevertheless, I hope you found this monologue interesting. It was quite a few ideas. I hope this was not all over the place. But if you liked it, if you want more details for any of the things that I mentioned, just drop a comment below. And as always, I try to put a lot of effort into these videos. If you like them, please subscribe, leave a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video.